welcome to another episode of No Smoke, Just Vapor. Today we are talking about a very important topic, standards for the vaping industry. And to help us unpack what we mean by standards, we are joined by Ms. Liz Anderson, who I will let her introduce herself to you. Liz, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sandra, and good morning to everybody. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I've been involved in standards nationally and internationally for many years, going back to about the 80s. But perhaps I should give a little bit of background on what standards were, where they first came from, the purpose behind them, just to help people understand the importance of them to our everyday life. The British Standards Institute was the first that was started in 1901. Which is a long time ago. And that was basically to bring in consistent guidelines and standards for the construction industry, for engineering, and then a little bit later for the munitions. Now, with all these horrible things happening around the world, we can understand the need for consistency in production of weapons and things, so they don't explode in transport or in handling. And we can use a similar analogy to things for vaping. But let's just have a look then. The British Standards Institute was the forerunner of putting standards globally. We then had the formation just after the Second World War of the ISO, International Standards Organization, which was set up firstly in London in 1947, and of course it moved to Geneva for its headquarters, and that coordinates standards globally. We have a lot of standards from America, ANSI, which we know particularly in the international engineering sector, and South African standards, South African Bureau of Standards was started in 1945 based on the model from the UK, for the British Standards Institute. So there is a history of standards, and the main point is to have consistency of quality so that we know what we are dealing with. There are a number of facets to that. It is firstly, to know that the manufacturer can make something in a consistent way. And that is where in the 1980s, I got involved in standards, when the SABS had the SABS 0157 Quality Management Standard, which was the forerunner of the well-known today ISO 9000 series of quality management standards.
Okay.
And that is to show that people use quality assurance to see the repeatability of their manufacture so they can have consistent products coming forward.
And I guess that
gives you a little overview.
No, it does, Liz. Thank you very much for that, because we often talk about standards and without understanding where they come from and what the premise of having standards is for. And I think from then a vaping point of view, if we can just move to that, where you've got products that people are inhaling, putting inside their bodies. So a huge element is on the consumer protection and for consumers to have the assurance that what they are using is of a particular standard. I mean, vaping products have been in South Africa for quite some time now, and we haven't had standards. I mean, what delays having standards on products while we know that people are using those products?
Indeed, absolutely. And standards are often there. People misunderstand them. They're not always regulations unless they are designated so by the regulators, or of course if they fall under the Standards Act, in which case they are regulations under the Department of Trade and Industry. Okay, so when we're looking at these type of standards, they are voluntary, and that is the whole point of having an organization like Vapour, whose members are obligated to comply with the standard requirements, and that is to protect the public. The DTI, of course, has other protection areas, the Consumer Protection Act is an important one, and this supports the Consumer Protection Act and, of course, the Health Acts. So they cover a wide number of topics. And for this particular one, we are looking at consistency of quality. That when we talk vaping, we're talking about harm reduction to the consumer. We're all consumers. We're looking at reducing harm. There is a big move globally to move people from smoking as such. So the amount of vaping is growing everywhere. And in our part of the world, in Africa, it's important that we play our role. And I'm really pleased to see that industry is doing that through VAPASA. And we're looking at a number of different issues, because the vaping is involved in, you've got a threefold situation. You've got the quality of the actual, the physical
device
units that is the vaping.
Yeah.
You've got the quality of the liquid that is used to be warmed. And you've got the quality of the battery, which does the heating. So it's a threefold thing, which is really important, that there is quality assurance on all of these, and that we have consistencies. So there we go. It's
I think Liz, just to cut you there. So when you look at vaping devices and then the accompanying accessories, etc., oftentimes people just see it as one unit, where you say, if you're going to have standards, you just choose a component. You've just mentioned now that the separate components that make up a vaping devices have to conform to a certain standard. And as a consumer, why is that important? That you have set standards for the device, a set standard for the e-liquid, and then the atomizers, etc. Why should I care about that classification?
Well, it's there to protect the consumer. When we look at the standards, and do you want me to give a little bit of information about what is actually happening at the moment?
Yes,
or
please.
Do you want to lead on to that?
Yeah, you can. You can.
Well, we started this journey of introducing standards because there is nothing. And the health department were being slow in bringing out any regulations. So industry was proactive to take this stance. Let's get a standard based on what is happening internationally, not something we just picked out of a hat. Let's look at a very solid basis and bring it in. So voluntarily our industries and our suppliers are looking at providing a consistent and good quality product to the users. Okay. So from there, we have a number of people that produce possibly the whole product, and those that produce the different parts of the products. So the standard, the journey for a standard is rather a slow one, even though we are adopting international. We started with it last year, and we are hopeful that the document will go out for public comment this side of the Christmas holiday break, in which case it will be able to be published fully early in the new year. So that's what we're waiting on. It has been completed and agreed to by the committee, and it addresses, as I mentioned, the three important components. To look at the quality of the vaping device, it's not going to fall apart. There are requirements for drop tests, that it doesn't break under certain conditions, so the quality of the materials. There are requirements for the e-liquids to be analyzed, and maximum quantities of certain components in there that may be harmful. There's also standards for the quality of the battery, so that also is not going to cause any harm. Now, people have heard challenges with some of these lithium batteries, and yes, there have been in various other products, but if they are assessed to be consistent, that is the important thing. We don't want just any old battery to be used that might fit into the device.
So Liz, Sorry, so in the absence then of standards, because we don't, you've rightfully said we don't have standards currently for vaping products. So what are manufacturers using, as a benchmark? Are there international guidelines, that best practice that they are using currently, to your knowledge? Do you know?
You raise a good question, because there are the more responsible manufacturers that will be using what is known in the international arena already in place. And there are others that come in undercutting the market, and various components they get and they put together, and there is no control at all. That is of concern, I think, to all of us. And although I know everybody's pockets are tight with the economy, it doesn't do, you get the old adage, you get what you pay for. You don't want to buy cheap and have something that could perhaps be problematic or cause harm. So that's very important on that. As I say, by getting the standard in place to ensure consistent quality of all those three components, because they might not all be made by the same manufacturer, we then help to reassure the public that they are also complying with globally accepted standards for safety, and also the Consumer Protection Act and some of the other regulations we have in this country regarding the e-liquids as well, labeling and so on.
So the concern we have then, Liz, I'm just thinking about what you said earlier, that they're not compulsory, so people don't have to, so it's not a law, don't have to abide by what will come out of the standards process. So if you've got members of an organization like the Vapour Products Association, they could be compelled to do so. But when you've got an industry that is so divided, where not everyone is part of an association. The association represents just about 60% in market share of the industry. So what happens to those who say, you know what, I don't have to comply, so I'm not going to comply?
Very important but difficult question to answer, because until the regulators get on board and work hand in hand with industry on this, we don't want over-regulation, of course we don't. But it's getting the industries who are supplying into the market to understand that this is a requirement to protect people, and the potential liability back to them is quite serious if they don't comply to the standards. But being part of the association, they then, part of being a member is signing that they will comply to the requirements of the association. So this is self-regulating in industry as opposed to the regulator. I'm hopeful that with the regulations in place, the National Department will recognize the good work that industry is doing and support and refer to these standards, as has happened in other countries. And then it will help to give confidence to the manufacturers, they're supplying a quality product, and also to the consumer that this company supplying this product they are buying is made by a member of the association who is adhering to these principles and requirements.
Mm-hmm. Do you foresee, Liz, a change in terms of I'm assuming it's not going to be business as usual for the industry once these standards come into effect. What are some of the things that you anticipate will happen, where industry is concerned?
Well, I'm hoping there'll be a change in behavior and understanding. There are many things that currently are of concern, and I think it's not only here. One is the packaging and the labeling, and I see these things have all these bright colors and these horrible names, like, sorry, I'm not meant to mention anything, but these sort of sweetie type things, which children might latch onto and think, and wrongly think it's sweeties or it's something to drink, I don't know. But internationally in the standards arena, packaging and labeling of anything to do with hazardous products is not meant to be, number one, attractive to children. Okay. And the bright color, it needs to be clearly labeled, not to be misused. So those are issues that I think at the moment are lacking. And I'm hopeful that we'll start seeing that behavior change from industry, because they're now starting to realize that, in fact, it will put them in good standing in the marketplace.
And that's a very important one, Liz. I mean, you've seen not just in South Africa, but globally, the issue of young people accessing these products, and what draws them tends to be that kind of packaging. So to have a process in place, or rather standards, that can ensure that we protect young people without restricting the products to the intended users, which are adult smokers, is something that is very, very important. And I think that's something we ought to really push for, you know, as an industry and every stakeholder who's interested in this area of work.
Yes, absolutely, because the importance of industry self-regulating and putting forward good things is to work with government to save them being too harsh. And there are moves around the world saying, oh, they want to ban this, they want to ban that. Well, it'll only go underground to the black market, and that's the last thing we want, because it just will unfortunately, it will let the market open to products which are not of good quality to come in. And that is something that needs to be blocked. And then it'll be a free-for-all.
Yeah.
So rather we work and we say, right, we are doing things the right way because it's the thing to do. We think as industry, well, we also have children and grandchildren, and we want to protect their health for the future. I see there's a move in the UK. They are saying things about protecting the health of the nation. It's equally important wherever we are in the world. But I think if you're too harsh, you push things underground, and that's not the way to go. The way to go is to work hand in hand and do it responsibly.
And on that note, thank you very much, Liz, for your time. And just to summarize what Liz is saying, which is something that the industry does believe in, is that get stakeholders together, because we want to protect consumers, we want to protect young kids. And getting standards for the vaping industry in South Africa is just one of those initiatives that the industry has really pushed hard on. If you are new to our channel, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And we look forward to you joining us in our next episode. Thank you.